and all reports show that Mike McDonald is clear for takeoff. So we shall see how that goes. Welcome, everybody, to Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. I am one of the post-game hosts, Desmond. I've got my partner, Dre, here with us as well. And obviously, everybody knows Mark Rogers. Before we jump in, please like and subscribe. We definitely appreciate it. We are doing our best to grow the channel, as well as subscribe to Mark's main channel, The Voice of College Football, as well as his Patreon as well, which he's got some pretty good picks that he does himself, as well as some other media members. But yeah, appreciate it. We are here every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And also in season, we are here for the post game after Michigan football. So, gentlemen, how we doing? Dre, how's it going, man?
Cold. Very cold. Very cold where we're at. It's starting to kick in now, man. That reality of the time of the season. When you walk, it's funny. We had like a little snowfall a few days ago, but then like by the time it was like in the middle of the night, but by like midday, it kind of melted a little bit. But then we had like another snowfall like a day afterwards, and it's so cold that it's literally like like stuck now. And it's like, it's not. This is not like cute, no. This is like legit winter. We're in winter now, so not fun.
Yeah, the folks in Michigan, I heard a study, or maybe it was from a doctor, but that folks in Michigan go through vitamin D deficiency. A good percentage of our more than half of our population go through that. So I think a lot of people kind of call it the winter blues, or whatever the case may be, because it's so gray outside. But
no, that was being a Lions fan.
That's part of it too. That's probably part of it too. So yeah, we're rocking and rolling. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing well, and even on days like today here in Connecticut, where I would say for the past few days it's been like perfectly blue skies, sunny, but it's 15 degrees outside or whatever it is. Nobody wants to go outside, so you don't want to go outside. It looks nice from inside, at least there's sunshine, but I guess I'm looking at the glass half empty. But yeah, it's been nice and sunny here, but yeah, like Dre was saying, you get hit with the cold, or at least this is my experience. You get hit with the cold sometime in December, and of course it kind of ramps up. And at some point after the holidays, there's a little bit of a charm, at least leading into Christmas, the Christmas season, New Year's Eve. Okay, and then after that, it's just like, I'm done with this. Like, it's a drag. Let's be done with this.
Yeah. Yep, that's exactly how I feel. Day after Christmas, if all of this melted and it turned to 60 degrees,
oh yeah,
that's right up my alley. Right up my alley.
Oh yeah, if you could order weather, sure. Yeah, I'll take the 30 degrees because okay, I can flip this off whenever I want. Nice little Christmas Eve with 2 inches of snow, just enough to blanket everything, make it look pretty.
If you could order weather, that would overnight be the most profitable industry. Yeah, I mean, it would blow Amazon, Tesla, Apple, all of that out of the water. It would be, a $50 trillion industry from day one. I
don't know, gentlemen, that one day it may be some kind of virtual reality device in which, this time of the year, I'm just going to put these on for
the metaverse.
Yeah, the metaverse.
Yeah. Well, I think we are about there already.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not big into the metaverse, and I don't pay too much attention to it. But if I can get 60 degrees a day after Christmas, I may start paying attention to the metaverse. Well, the big news, which has been, within the last couple hours, but because Dre, you and I spoke around 2:00 today, it's just after 5, and when I last saw Twitter, which was probably 10 a.m. or noon, it was keep an eye out on Mike McDonald as far as the DC for the Ravens. And then by the time you and I spoke at 2 p.m., it was all signs are pointing to Mike McDonald is about to take this position. So it looks like Mike McDonald is moving on after a marvelous 1-year stint here at Michigan, where he did a phenomenal job. I want to make sure I give him his due credit, because I do think it was more of what he did and less his predecessor. So he did a terrific job.
You just don't like. You were not a Don Brown fan,
No,
man. That's just
it was not. And the results showed that I guess that part is to be determined. But no, but Mike McDonald did a terrific job, phenomenal job. And he is now heading back to the Baltimore Ravens, which is where he coached before this season with Michigan, and is going back as defensive coordinator. So, Dre, what are your thoughts on the change and Jim Harbaugh potentially needing to find a new defensive coordinator for that defense?
well. Well, for one, I mean, I think this there's a bit of comedy in this whole thing. It's kind of like like he had young Mikey, working for John Harbaugh, and he's like, he has aspirations to move up the corporate ladder, and and John just doesn't have the room, but he likes him. He said, hey, I got a brother that has like a little smaller business who could use an intern for a season. And how about you go up there, check it out, do what you can do, and we'll see if we can find a spot for you. And then he goes and does it, and earns his way back into the bigger company with John. It's funny, like if you really like, it's very very unique. Um, but I'll say this: I can't truthfully say it's a catastrophic loss for the program. It's a loss that will be felt. Um, because part of it is like I'm not sure just how big of an impact Mike McDonald had on the defense this year. Because it's not big enough sample size, right? I'm not saying to do anything. I thought he did a good job, but after one season, just him as a coach, I can't say Mike McDonald is an elite defensive coordinator. I can't say he's a great defensive coordinator. Um, my opinion of him is that he is a young defensive mind on the rise, right, and shows promise. Uh, so tough loss, but Des, me and you've been talking about this, been very consistent with this since the season wrapped up, which is we know this upcoming season, if this program wants to repeat the success it had this year, it will not be with the same formula. They were not going to be leaning on their defense this upcoming season anyway, just due to the amount of departures they're having on the defensive side of the ball. They're going to have to find their own new identity anyway, right? So, and they were going to have to lean on the offense, lean on Gaddis coming back. Looks like he's going to be back so far. JJ or Cade, taking over the reins or keeping the reins, and this offense continue to take that next step, right? And scoring more points opposed to being more ball control. So it's a tough loss, not catastrophic, and I guess it remains to be seen because it was just 1 year sample size.
So you're not ready to call him a young Bill Belichick just yet?
Not quite, man, not quite. or Wade Phillips or Dick LeBeau or whatever you want.
What about a young Don Brown? Are you ready to call him that?
Hey man, he got to grow a mustache for that first, man. He's too clean shaven for that. Donnie rocks a nice mustache.
For sure. Mark, what are your thoughts on Mike McDonald? Let's assume he will be moving on to the Ravens. So what are your thoughts on the departure?
Yeah, like Dre, it strikes me funny as to the dynamic with brother and brother being head coach and boss, and the rise through the ranks with the Ravens, and then let's not give him a defensive coordinator's job in the NFL. Let's see what he can do and get the internship, like Dre said, get the internship at the collegiate level, try him out. Hey, did he do okay? Yeah. And like you said, Des, before the show, the risk all falls on Jim, and John can just kick back. Okay, I like what he did there. Let's bring him back. Hope you enjoyed
the 1 year of success.
1 year of Mike McDonald there, and there it is. So, yeah, and Dre also brought it up. when somebody has a long track record of success, then you can start to, the bigger the sample size, the more you can understand and have a read on how much of it's this individual, because they're churning through all sorts of different players. They've been able to do it with, this style quarterback or that style quarterback, or, depending on the defensive side, they've had, their ups and downs in regards to recruiting classes and what kind of talent they've had and how good the conference has been. And we've seen them do it with all these different challenges and styles of play that they've had to stack up against, and they've been consistent. Brent Venables being kind of the industry standard in college football recently in the last decade. And so with Mike Macdonald, I believe if John Harbaugh wants him back, then to run a defense in the NFL, I got to think that he's that good. But based on the evidence, it's an improved defense. But they also had those two DNs, and they had Dax Hill, and had some pretty darn good players to make it work. The one thing I'll go back to that I thought Jim Harbaugh was really the new Jim Harbaugh, the 2021 version, of being a little bit more clear with his thoughts, and that I really locked in on, and it proved to be true based on the success, was he said that he was impressed with Mike Macdonald, and this is going back to Big Ten Media Days, because he could evaluate the skill sets of the players, and he could put them in the right place, and he could work the defense in such a way that would not expose certain guys and really play to their strengths. And Harbaugh said that that's what he really was impressed with, is his ability to really evaluate the player very quickly and accurately, and then put them in the best position to succeed, and then be able to form a defense with the 11 guys on the field. And shoot, what are you playing, more like 18 or 20 over the course of a game, and put those guys in the right place to play to their strengths.
Yeah, and it's funny that you said that, Mark, because I was going to bring up Brent Venables. When you look at a person with his track record, granted there's an age difference, but when you look at a guy like Brent Venables, who had done it at Clemson for 9-10 seasons, that's something you can have more substance behind. That loss for Dabo Swinney as a defensive coordinator, you can say without a doubt that is a big loss for that program and that head coach and that staff, where I do think that Mike Macdonald is a big loss for the staff. But at the same time, like you both have mentioned, it is a 1-year sample size, so it's difficult to put too much weight on it. But still, I think Mike Macdonald did a phenomenal job. And when it comes to coaching, and especially in a coordinator role, the best ones take the personnel that they have, and they put the best system in place for that personnel. And the fact that Mike Macdonald made the changes of that defensive strategy and attacking as far as those defensive ends, and just really letting Aiden and Ojabo loose and just go get the quarterback, I think it shows that he is a really good coach. And it'll be interesting to see what that next step is, and who's going to come in to replace Macdonald, and what that's going to look like. Is the defense going to look the same? Are they going to make a change? Is it going to, there's a lot of things that come into play, and you wonder if there's going to be any fall off next year. And I would assume yes, not so much for Mike Macdonald because he left, but more so the personnel that is leaving, with, arguably the number 1 draft pick in Aiden Hutchinson, and Ojabo, who's a top 15, 20 first round draft pick as well as Dax Hill. So I think there's going to be some drop off, but how big or small that drop off is, will be big on who's the next defensive coordinator and who comes in. And R.W. Tyndall has essentially the next thing I wanted to kind of talk about is who. Well, first question is the replacement for Mike Macdonald on this staff? And Dre, I'll ask you that first. Do you think the defensive coordinator of the 2022 season is on this current coaching staff.
Yeah. Forgive me if I mispronounced his name. It's Easton, the defensive line coach they got from Notre Dame.
I think it's, let me see, Mike Elston.
Mike Elston, so close enough.
Yep.
Mike Elston, I think he's a candidate to possibly take it over. Here's the thing. This would not probably hurt as much if you had a situation like last year in which you did have most of your top players from defense returning, because they were familiar with the system, even with Mike Macdonald. Well, yeah, I mean they are familiar with the system, even with Mike Macdonald leaving, and so they can kind of keep things together. But now you're going to be playing musical chairs until you figure out who's going to fit where next season anyway. Now with a new defensive coordinator, who knows, if it's Elson or somebody else, they want to keep the same scheme or change things up. We don't know. Because I believe if I'm not mistaken, when Mike Macdonald first came in, wasn't his thought process was to flip this defense to a 3-4, right, from the 4-3 scheme that they previously were. I'm actually pretty sure about that. Yes, they did flip to a 3-4. Could have had Aiden and Ajabo standing up.
Yeah, I think his philosophy overall was that they were going to be multiple just due to the personnel that they had. But I think yeah, you're right. I think it was a base 3-4, but he mentioned having multiple looks out there.
Right. So I mean, like, is that going to be something that they keep? The multiple look and with a preference to 3-4, or do they go back to a traditional 4-3 if they've been most of the time? That's going to be that remains to be seen. So I think it'll be internal. I don't know at this point in this time of the year if they're going to be, going out and plucking somebody else, defensive coordinator, unless it's somebody they got canned past year who's looking for work. So we'll see.
Mark, what do you think?
Well, somebody here in the chat, I'll have to track down the comment, brought up.
I think Coach Klink, right?
Yep, Coach Klink, Steve Clinkscale, who has only been on the staff himself a year, but it was an impressive year from the standpoint that the secondary was a mess the year before and played so much better this past season. His previous experience is at Kentucky, in which they had top 4 to 5 defenses in the SEC and had some excellent production there. And he churned out a number of NFL players there. So there's always that question of somebody being a first-time coordinator versus being an excellent position coach and whether they can make that transition. And sometimes I think coaches, meaning the head coach, makes that elevation because they don't want to lose someone, and they think that, okay, he's earned the spot, he's earned the shot at it. And most people, if they're good at something, can adapt and figure it out. So yeah, those are 2 candidates right now on the defensive staff that might be in play.
Yeah, I think if I had to make a call, I would probably say go external, and solely because I think so highly of the Michigan, that position, that defensive coordinator position. Like, I think you can go and get outside of maybe 5 or 6 defensive coordinators that are, at high profile places. I think outside of that, you can get any defensive coordinator that you want. And I think you're going to need to have a guy do a terrific job this year. And what I mean by that is we've said the talent that you're losing, but if you want to compete in the Big Ten and repeat with winning the Big Ten, beating Ohio State, you're going to need to take the potential that you have with the players, because Michigan's recruited at a very high level, but you're going to have to take the potential and realize that and get those guys to play together and in a way that the team did this year. But I don't think you're going to have the same talent that this team had.
But if that's the case, then if you're talking about getting the most out of talent already on campus, especially in terms of incoming recruits. I think that's even more of a reason to stay internal because you don't know what impact I don't know how much more in 1 year, but still internally, you never know what impact why certain guys came to campus, and if you bring in somebody external and they want to change the schematics of this defense, that may not be what some of these players, want to be in, and that could, cause them to hit the transfer portal or. So
Yeah, but I agree with that, but I'll push back as well. But if you're Jim Harbaugh and you're doing what you're supposed to do, you're going to know the scheme that you're running.
Jim is too busy doing squats at school's gym. Okay.
Well, if that's the case, then yes, you need to hire internally. But yeah, I mean, you have the cachet as the Michigan coach to say, well, here's what we run now. I'm looking for a coach to run this scheme. Like, you can run it your way, but this is what we're going to run. And if you don't want to run it, that's okay. That's fine. Then you can, keep the current position that you have, and we just won't offer you.
Well, our head coach is not even committed to signing his extension. His new
That's
deal.
enough. And we talked about this when I called you earlier. Do you think that had anything to do with McDonald leaving? I personally don't, because I think that was a phenomenal job to be a defensive coordinator in the NFL under John Harbaugh. That is a phenomenal opportunity, but what's taking so long? I think that's what everybody is talking about. What's taking so long?
Look, man. I don't know. Look, we can, and it's going to be like that, right? We're all going to guess because apparently the offer is on the table. It's been on the table for a while, and he's taking his sweet time, and like he's waiting for something. But anyway, what's interesting is like. You're watching the NFL now, right? And that's why I can't blame Mike McDonald for taking a job. For one, he's a young guy. He's 34 years old. The NFL is a young man's game, head coaching wise. Yeah, and essentially, if you're a coordinator on a really good NFL team, you do a good job, you are fast tracked to get an NFL job. I think Mike clearly has aspirations to be in the NFL, to be a head coach, and he goes back to the Ravens, has a couple good seasons. You may see him on the sidelines as an NFL head coach as soon as 2 years from now. Like, it's different now. You don't have to wait and pay your dues for like 10, 15 years in the NFL before you get your first job, right? You got Luke McCown, who had Josh McCowns, with no coaching experience, essentially being interviewed by the Texans. Okay, so I'm just saying, not to go all off on a tangent, but I can't blame Mike for doing it. Not at all.
Here's my issue with what Jim Harbaugh is doing is you're going to, by waiting. I mean, we're almost into February. By waiting this long, let's say his decision is to move on. He's got his right to do that, and that's fine. But you're going to get to a point to where other head coaching candidates are going to be kind of in the process of spring to where they're not going to make a change. So you're inadvertently hurting Michigan by waiting so long to make this decision, because a lot of these coaches are, I mean, look at the extensions that we've already seen signed in the last, month and a half. And so potential coaches who could come in and do a great job and do a phenomenal job potentially may not even be in that mode anymore of potentially taking another job or coming to Michigan, because this has just gone on for so long that you may miss out on the opportunity. So he may, be hurting Michigan if his goal and plan is to move on. And that's, I guess for me, that's the part that's frustrating is, and it's hard to say because it is his right to wait however long he wants. It's his decision. But on the other side, I'm like, hurry up and make a decision. Whatever you want to do is fine, but you got to make a decision. Like, you're almost holding Michigan hostage. Whereas I feel like last year it was, kind of the back and forth of the contract, and it seemed like there was the perception of I'm trying to use NFL leverage to maybe get closer to what my salary was, whereas this year it seems like it's more he's just kind of holding him hostage. Seemingly, maybe I'm just misconstruing everything, but that's definitely how it seems.
This year, last year, he was like, looking on his phone like every day, or checking his email every day, waiting for that extension invite to come in. This year, he's literally been like, yeah, I don't have to worry about it. That's the difference. He's bought himself some time, and he has leverage. At least with the university, he knows it. He knows that they're not going to.
Well, and I would think that the extension is going to include a pay bump, right? I mean, I would think
Absolutely.
that with the season he's just had. So it's just odd. It's odd. What are your thoughts on it?
Go ahead, Mark. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, he had to take the hit last year because of the level of play not being what it was or needed to be the year before. He took it, he pulls through, and now here we are only 1 year later. And you would expect, if there's an extension, that I don't know if they're going to reinstate him to the previous salary, because at this point now he's achieved more than all those years that he was making that previous salary. He's won a Big Ten championship, beaten Ohio State, gone to the playoff, didn't achieve that from 2015 through 20. On the other hand, I think Jim Harbaugh better be careful, because if you're an employer and you've got an offer out to someone, especially at this level, when we're talking this importance and this level of cachet and money involved, and even if they eventually accept the offer and it wasn't this reasonable, okay, I'm going to give it a weekend, I got to talk to my family, I got to weigh some things, and you can be understanding as an organization as to, this is a major decision, plus he's leaving his alma mater, and so there are other ties and attachments there. But when you're talking potentially the Raiders stopped playing 2 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
And even if he eventually takes the job, I got to think that there might be a little doubt and distrust that builds, just thinking, he eventually took this, but does he really want this? He had to really
is he all in?
Think this. Is he all in? He really had to think this over. Why did it take so long?
Just,
maybe you get off to a bad start in your new job that way.
Yeah.
I just don't. It's difficult to understand, because I just
understand.
He's a unique guy. But like I said, it's his decision to make, and I do understand it. But at the same time, like Mark said, for the Raiders or the Dolphins, or I've seen him mock to, I think, the Bears now. I've seen rumors just galore. I mean, where would you like to go? Like, what would you like to do? In whatever that is, it's fine. But
leaking that out. I think Jim, honestly, it's just like, look.
You think he's just playing the game, or well, I heard he doesn't have an agent. Somebody told me that on Twitter. He doesn't have an agent, so this is either him or family members. It's odd. It's very odd, and I know he's got to hear the noise by him not signing the extension. Like, there's no way you're just operating in it. I'd be shocked if a recruit didn't ask him the question. I mean, if I'm a 5-star recruit, I am 1,000% asking him that question. Like, Coach, are you going to be here in 3 years? But when I'm declaring for the draft, are you going to be here? Like, and I think a recruit's got every right to ask that question, because why would I commit to Michigan where so I commit on January 26th and February 5th you take the job with the Raiders? Like, I just don't understand it. I don't understand what's taking so long. I don't know. Do you think it coincides with his quote of, money's money, it's just money, not a big deal? Like, he just, isn't that
I thought that was
concerned
just
about it,
fluff.
or
No, I think that was just fluff, man. I think that's just them saying, nice things. I'm not saying that, there's no one who's like, yeah, money doesn't matter. I'll do this job for free. Okay, miss me with that. I think he does care for the university. I mean, that's clear. I mean, he has deep ties,
Mhm.
to this university. There's no doubt about that. So on one hand, that's true, but the whole, yeah, I'll do this job for free. Okay.
then do it.
Um,
Do it then.
yeah, do it then. I think Jim, and we're not in that mind of his, that quirky mind of his. I think he realized his age, which is at the age of 58. Uh, I think he notices that he's kind of at that crossing roads where he knows that he has unfinished business in the NFL. He never won a Super Bowl. He was really close. Um, he realizes this may be it. Like this may be like the very, very last opportunity. The game is really passing him by, both by style and by age. Like the age of these head coaches now, and he's just trying to see if he can get that opportunity. And I do believe if the right opportunity in NFL came up, it would be very, very hard for him to turn it down himself. Um,
It doesn't seem like it, because I would argue the Raiders is pretty good as far as
but who said?
opportunities
Who
go.
said
I mean,
they haven't interviewed him? I don't know if that's like I don't believe no matter what Bruce Feldman or other people say. I don't believe that stuff is real. Like
okay,
from those organizations standpoint.
okay.
I like if that was the case, what's stopping the Braves from interviewing him? Like, and then well, maybe they're doing it in secret. Why would they do it in secret? What's the point? He's already made it clear. Like it's clear as day he hasn't signed the extension. So there's already like gray area. So okay, what are you guys doing? Interview him, Jim. If you're interested in the job, then do what you're gonna do. But like this whole, it's starting to get me hot now. I'm thinking more and more about it, and it's like also. Yes, you want to bring in a nice defensive coordinator. If I'm a highly thought of defensive coordinator or potential incoming player, I'm looking at this. I'm like, this guy may not be here a year from now. Clearly, he's not like fully entrenched into this job, by hook or by crook. So
But
yeah.
think about it too, though. If you are that defensive coordinator and you think well of yourself, the potential to step right into that head coaching
Do a
position
Marcus Freeman
probably comes up, I would think. Yeah. I mean, that could be an angle depending on how you look at it. But you got a point, Drake, because I've seen on Twitter of, and I want to say I think it was a Chicago Bears GM, but I saw on Twitter the Chicago Bears social media account tweeted out, "We have completed an interview with GM candidate, blah, blah, blah." I think they just hired someone, but like you said, I mean, there's no reason for them to hide anything. Granted, that's a GM position for his head coach, but you're right. There's no reason for the Raiders to interview him in secret. What, is Jim Harbaugh going to now hold the Raiders hostage too, saying, "Oh, well, if I see this, come out on social media, I'm not taking the job." Like, dude, yeah, okay, see you later. We'll go talk to Byron Leftwich or whatever, someone else. So it's
There are no
odd.
secrets in today's in like today now in nowadays with social media. Most likely Jim Harbaugh is spotted somewhere in Chicago. They better do a good job of sneaking him. Matter of fact, he's not even going to do that little 45-minute flight. He's going to do the little 2.5-hour drive or 3-hour drive in Ann Arbor just so he's not noticed in the all tinted out Escalade. So
I used to think that. As well up until about a month ago, because I thought there's just too many people with phones in their pockets. They can take pictures. There's just too much information out there. We all have more intelligence in our pockets than they did landing a guy on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
So it's incredible. How do you keep anything secret these days? There are text messages, there are DMs flying all over the place that people can understand. There's all that stuff going on. So I always thought that same thing, Dre, and then Lincoln Riley happened, and Brian Kelly happened, and everybody's like,
"Whoa, didn't see that coming."
Like nobody had any idea.
Well, people were asking the wrong question to Lincoln Riley. They kept asking him about LSU.
Yeah, true.
Lincoln,
but he wasn't going to say anything anyway, though.
He had to say. like nobody had a clue that those two deals were going down in the span of like 3 days.
Yeah.
Think about it. When has a college football coach left, not been fired, left a blue blood program to go to another blue blood program? And I got a pretty good handle on this in terms of my scope of history. And it's basically never. And it happened twice in like 3 days.
Yeah. And now, see, the thing I was gonna bring up was the Dax Hill plane tracker that happened, before the playoff game, where Dax didn't make the trip, and it was just so much speculation. Is it COVID? Is it whatever the case? And then somehow I saw someone on Twitter taking a picture of just, well, not even the airport. It was like a private plane of like a Michigan booster donor or something like that, that Dax Hill took that flight from Ann Arbor down to Florida to make the trip for the game and all that. But it was like literally people had the Dax Hill tracker, like, oh, he's on a plane, he's heading down to Florida and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how do you, it's wild. It's wild how dialed in some people are to just sports in general. I love sports, but I'm not nearly that dialed in to where I'm scoping out with binoculars, the private, airport, the private hangar in Ann Arbor.
That's because you love sports. You want to watch it. You're not obsessed with like people's personal choices.
No, to each their own.
We just want to watch ball.
Yes, very much so. That's it. Yeah, it's. I don't know. I mean, and I guess since we're talking speculation, what happens if Jim Harbaugh does move on? Dre, do you have any candidates kind of top of mind that you at least want them to make phone calls to?
Honestly, dude, like at this point in the game, like I wouldn't mind just going with an internal option. I wouldn't mind, promoting Gaddis or
to head coach
in the interim, see how he does. At this point, I wouldn't mind doing it. We're getting kind of late here. Like I think, what was it, February when Mel Tucker got hired back in 2020?
I think so.
So we're getting a week from that. We're getting kind of close. That's why it's so frustrating. Once again, what Jim is doing. It's like, most of the big time hires have kind of happened, right? I'm just, I would kind of do like a plug and play, if you will, for this upcoming year and see how it goes. And then after this upcoming off season, I'll try to look to make the big splash if we don't like the job that like a Josh Gaddis does or something like that. Or, and I say Gaddis because I couldn't see them promoting the running backs coach Mike Hart over Gaddis to be the head coach. I think that could be seen as a slap in the face.
I think that would be seen as a slap in the face. That's essentially, there's a management position open, and I'm a current manager, and you hire my employee who works under me
exactly
to now be my manager. Like that's a little odd.
Yeah. So it's that'll be the logical choice. I know a lot of people won't agree with that, but I just think it's getting too late in the game if Jim decided to leave to try to go make some big splash now. Sometimes when there's a lot of chaos, a lot of change, you don't want to. It helps to kind of button things up as much as you can, kind of stabilize the ship, and then when things are the seas are a little bit calmer, maybe you start doing some renovations. I hope that I just came up with that analogy. I have no idea if it made sense, but I tried. So.
Sure. Well, I've heard a lot of. Well, I can't say a lot. I've heard some Michigan fans would like Matt Campbell from Iowa State to Michigan. I think that could definitely work. I know he just signed an extension, so I mean, I don't really know how that works. I mean, if it's I don't know how that all of that works and goes, but I'm assuming that he would be fine to make a move to Michigan. Like I said, I think that could work. But like you said, Dre, we're getting late in the game. I checked. Mel Tucker was hired February 12th, so we're not that far out from that date.
And that was considered really late.
Yes.
And so I just don't know, man. It was like 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. I don't know how legitimate it was that Matt Rule would be really interested in the
I heard that.
job.
I saw that too.
don't. I mean, I look. I know that the Panthers. I know that the Panthers got off to a good start last year. I want to say, um, and then things kind of fell apart this past season a little bit down the stretch, and there's speculation that David Tepper doesn't have the biggest amount of patience, so maybe Matt Rule may flip, and I'll tell you this: if he was legitimately interested, I would love to take Matt Rule on here in Michigan. I like what he did down in Baylor. Um, he's still like a young enough guy, but so that's a potential guy if it's legitimate. I don't know how legitimate it is. It's rare that you see a guy, you know, with a legitimate NFL team decide to leave.
Yeah, think about Nick Saban. I mean that
was a disaster in Miami due to the fact that Drew Brees got hurt and no, he didn't pass his physical at Miami. Goes to New Orleans and
I'm just comparing parallels. There are some where and especially if you talk about a blue blood program like Michigan, and I would even say Michigan's current status is much better than what Alabama was when Nick Saban got there. I mean, they were coming off of sanctions and just different. There's a lot of mess going on before he was there, but that could be interesting. What are your thoughts, Mark, on Rule and Campbell?
Well, first to address the extension or anyone's extension and what that really means to me, I don't think it really means much of anything. It tells me about three things, because as you guys know, contracts in sports, I don't know what it is about the sports world where contracts seem to be about as flimsy as the paper or
I guess
metadata that they're on these days, because guys don't show up to training camp because they don't like their contract. Coaches leave whenever they want, even though they've signed for another 5 years. So the extension tells me a few things, though. There is some weight to it that the school is basically saying, we love the job that you're doing. We don't want you to leave. We're going to show you some security here. We can't fire you next year and not have to pay you a ton of money. So we are showing you in good faith a huge investment in you. So we really like the job you're doing. We want to keep you. And obviously the coach isn't going to turn down the extension, but by signing the extension, there's a lot less that he, it's really the school showing the good faith and the investment. The coach is just saying, hey, yeah, I'll take another $3 million a year. Sure.
Why not?
But if they want to leave, they're going to leave. Now it makes it more difficult in terms of another school coming in, because there's going to be a buyout that goes from being a few million for 1 year to, we've seen ridiculous buyouts the last couple of years with Willie Taggart at Florida State, Gus Malzahn at Auburn, eclipsing $22-24 million that schools have been willing to say, yep, we'll buy out. We want this guy, or they want to get rid of him, so he's gone.
Willie Taggart.
I think Iowa State administration is still shocked that Matt Campbell is there themselves. They're like, well, hey, Matt, we're really like the job you've done here. Here's a token of our appreciation.
Shocked you haven't left, for a better job.
I think they're shocked. Like, I think, like, Matt still. Hey, all right,
if you check the name on the university, it's not Ohio State. It's
not
even Iowa. It's Iowa State.
Iowa State, yeah, the Cyclones, Seneca Wallace. Yeah. Mark's got the super chat highlighted. Definitely want to shout out Mr. Glasper. Thanks so much for the super chat. Says, get the likes up, folks. These guys work hard to bring us content, and Mark never sleeps. That second part, very much so. I know it. I think sometimes, and even when I would watch Mark and the channel, is you, like, for instance, if you just subscribe to the Michigan channel, which is the best one to subscribe to, you would only think that Mark does content just on this channel, but no. He does content on every one of the channels, and it's wild. It's wild. I'm not sure how he just is only drinking water, not drinking like energy drinks like I have here, but it's impressive. It's impressive. Kudos to you, Mark. Kudos.
All water on camera.
Water on camera. Look, I'm seeing Sean Payton in the comments. Look, guys. All right. Look, I almost
You don't
say
think
this.
Michigan can call
Every
Sean
fan
Payton?
base does this. They go high. They think a lot of themselves.
I think One Scoop John has got it pretty. He's got it well. He said Sean Payton could go to 15 NFL
Yeah.
teams tomorrow. Michigan is a pipe dream. That's I think One Scoop John's got a good grasp on it. I
One of them
It-
might be the Dallas Cowboys as soon as next offseason.
Yeah.
You know, like
Well, and I think the interesting part, because we were talking about, Dre, you had mentioned Harbaugh going to, the NFL and just the lost opportunity of not getting to the Super Bowl. Because when you think about what's commonly regarded as the best two coaches in football, it's Belichick and it's Saban. And there's a difference there. There's a difference because, Belichick has done it at the highest level at the NFL. Saban's done it in college, but whatever the circumstance, people still look at that Dolphins record and they're like, dude, you were a disaster, in the NFL. Like, so, and not to say people are slighting him, but that's still a mark on the resume that it doesn't go away.
Are we going to call that a disaster? Are we going to go that?
Some people have.
7-9.
Some people have. I'm obviously because I'm a Nick Saban fan. I think he did if you look at number one, the Drew Brees situation,
Culpepper as the starting quarterback,
and not the Minnesota Vikings.
not Minnesota
Dante
Vikings. Dante
Culpepper.
Culpepper. He was a big guy. Dante Culpepper was a big guy at Minnesota. He was twice that size by the time he was playing man. That Florida Sun did not do him any good. No. That's when they had good old Ronnie Brown in the backfield and old Jason Taylor. Anyway,
the Drew Brees thing crushed them. So the Miami medical staff did not pass Brees for his physical. That's who Saban wanted, or at least that's the rumor. I wasn't there, so I don't know. But the story is that Saban wanted Drew Brees, and they had a chance to get him. The medical staff didn't clear him for his physical, so there's no way you can sign him. And then he went to New Orleans and off and running. There we are.
It's one of those just mind-boggling great what ifs in sports. Nick Saban gets Drew Brees. They're not 7-9, 8-8. They're whatever they are, 10-6, 11-5. They're a playoff team. He stays there. And even if he doesn't eventually succeed, but he only stays a couple more years, Alabama hires somebody else, and we've rewritten college football history completely.
Maybe Jim Harbaugh would be at Alabama.
Oh,
Rich Rod is the guy they were going after.
Yeah. Can you imagine Jim Harbaugh down south? And oh my goodness.
Just like speaking of Michigan, during that same time frame, Les Miles wanted the Michigan job at the conclusion of 2007. Who in the world makes a national championship game with 2 losses? So he's the only guy in history makes a national title game with 2 losses, 2 overtime losses that extends his season. And he wants to go to Michigan. It leaks that they're talking. He doesn't like that. It falls apart. They hire Rich Rod. He stays at LSU. Otherwise, Les Miles to Michigan. Who knows what goes on there?
Yeah,
And
but you know what? Rich Rod potentially could have worked at Michigan, but that's a whole other episode. Okay, like
I think he definitely could have worked. I don't think it was not a culture fit, and the administration was just not having it. But the other thing I think about is what if Terrell Pryor because from what I remember, and I could be wrong, but I believe he was deciding between Ohio State and Michigan.
Don't do this to
and
me.
ended up going there.
And Mark, it's the truth. Don't dispute it. I know Ohio State fans. He was, and my father-in-law. He was never coming to you guys. Okay, you guys are just on this list. He was never coming to you guys. Whatever. I remember that. I was praying on my knees,
saying like,
and I'm like, man, come on, please.
I dodged a bullet.
To be quite honest, see, this is when I start getting hot. To be quite honest, for his skill set, a dual threat quarterback, he was a much better fit for Rich Rod's system compared to Tressel. To be quite honest, we're being honest, right, Mark? Don't you agree?
I probably agree with that.
I don't think that's a bad statement.
Yep. So whatever, man. Terrell, now you're out the NFL. You got to switch to receiver.
All right, we don't have to bash the young man.
Just
He
saying.
made his decision. I'm sure he's happy with it.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we would have.
But
Man.
he, I mean, he
I'm
would
still
have
hot about
changed a lot I mean, he was that talented, especially as a college quarterback. Where I mean,
I
you
know.
can
I
you
had to
can
watch it a couple years against my team. I know how talented he is.
yeah,
That
you
was
could
rough.
pencil him in on his own 8-9 wins. Like he just needs guys to do a little bit. Like I think he was that talented running and throwing.
He had an underrated career at Ohio State. I've seen some lists of all-time, like, let's say BCS era quarterbacks, and him like it's some ridiculous on several lists. And I've thought, do these people watch football? Do they know what's going on? Did they watch his career? He took
Yeah.
them to 3 BCS bowl games. They won 3 Big Ten championships. They finished in the top 5 his last 2 years. He won the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl MVP those 2 years.
Dude was a baller. He was a baller.
Slightly off topic. I do like I actually I go to the gym with a few former Michigan football players, and and I was talking to one guy. He played corner for Michigan, and he told me he was on like the Michigan roster around 2013, 14 run that time period. He was like, man, like people really don't realize how smooth. Uh, um, and now I'm drawing a blank on his name. Why am I drawing?
Who, Denard?
Braxton Miller was.
Oh,
That dude, Braxton Miller is one of the most smoothest athletes I've ever seen in my life.
yeah.
And it was shocking because it was like people, you don't realize just how athletic a lot of those Ohio State quarterbacks were in this run they've had. It's now him compared to Terrell Pryor, of course, that was before this guy was there, so he didn't play against a Pryor. But anyway, yeah,
Yeah, Miller was another one who was phenomenal. He could throw up. He had a really good deep ball.
yeah.
They didn't throw it a lot. They didn't throw it downfield a lot. They were, that was urban and basketball on feet on grass or whatever the case. But no, they played. Braxton Miller was legit. That's another guy who was just on another level. But I mean, Michigan had Shoelace with his untied shoes and all that. But if he could have gotten some help, man.
Like I never understood that. I'm like, dude, put freaking shoelaces on. And then I remember one time I went to football practice. I'm like, let me try this out. I'm like, this is so dangerous.
You did that in practice?
No, not really. Like I tried to walk around in it, and I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. Like like I feel like this is like roll a twisted ankle waiting to happen. Like, and I'm like, I'm about to run out my cleats. I'm like, no, let me put my laces back in. Like, this is whatever, dude. Like,
yeah, if I was his coach, I'd have been like, I don't care what your nickname is, tie your shoes. Tie your shoes up, son.
But coach, I'm faster without them.
Okay, well, be slower. Tie your shoes.
I don't understand.
I don't have time for this. Because that's the thing. Like you said, that's a rolled ankle waiting to happen.
Yeah.
What was that Michigan offense without Denard Robinson? They would have been a disaster. I mean, because they had he hurt his, what was it, his elbow or something like that, like late in that season when Gardner had to come in. No. Tie them shoes up. I'm not messing around.
Come on, shoelace. Okay, you can keep the nickname because you did it when you were a kid. You're not doing it here, son. So put some laces.
Tie your shoes up, please.
Tie your shoes.
Oh, man. Well, I think that wraps it up for us. Everybody, we definitely appreciate you guys. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll see we'll be here next week. Let's see if Jim Harbaugh will be signed his extension and finalized with Mike McDonald, with him going to the Ravens. There's a lot going on. I mean, some people call this the offseason, but as of right now, I mean, there's a lot going on around Michigan. So we'll see what happens, and hopefully next week we have the head coach signed with an extension and ready to rock and roll. So
Don't hold your breath.
right. All right. Thanks, everybody. Peace.